Let's create the settings panel that appears when I click this hamburger button. So I'll go to my code, I'll create a new component in a new file called settings. My component function will return a frame, and I want that frame to be purple. I want it to fill the full width of the screen, so 100%, and I want it to be 300 points high. And I also want the corners to be rounded by 16 points. In order to see what I'm doing, I'm going to add this component to my main app component. So I just need to import it and then add the tag for my settings component to my JSX. I want the settings panel to appear in front of everything else, so I'll add it below the other elements in my JSX. Now I can see my panel, but it's not quite in the right place. To pin it to the bottom of the screen, I'll set the distance between my component and the bottom to 0. Now I'll add a title as an H1 element inside my frame. I want to customize the style of this title, so I'll add a style property to the H1 tag and set the font size, weight, color, and I'll get rid of the default margin by setting it to 0. I want to put a little line rule under this title. So I'm actually going to wrap the H1 in a frame and add a border to the bottom of that frame to make the line rule. I'm using the RGBA syntax to create a white line with a 20% opacity. And I'll set the height of my frame to 72, the left position to 24, and the right position to 0. To make it stretch all the way to the right edge. And now that I have my title inside this container frame, I can set the position of the title relative to the bottom of its container by setting the position property to absolute and the bottom distance to 8. And then I'll just turn off the background color for my container frame. I'm going through all of this kind of quickly because this should all be starting to feel familiar to you, hopefully. So now I want to add my 2 switches with their labels below the title. And I'm going to use a vertical stack for that. Using a stack might be a little bit overkill for just 2 elements, but I might want to add more controls here later. So it'll be nice to have that already set up in a stack. So first I need to import stack from the Framer library, and then I'll add my stack element below this container frame for my title. And I'll add some properties to position it where I want. Now inside this stack, I'm going to add 2 frames. Each frame will contain a switch and a label for that switch. I'll start by just creating the first one. This is going to be for the ratings control, and then I'll just set the height and I'll set it to fill the full width of my stack. Then inside this frame, I'll add an H3 tag for the label. This control will be called show ratings. And then I'll add some styling to make the text look how I want it to look. Looks good. And now remember that switch that we made way back when we first started this project? We're finally going to get to use it. So first I will import it, and then I'll add the tag for the component inside this frame after the H3 for the label. I want it to be anchored all the way to the right, and I want it to be centered within this frame on the y-axis, so centered vertically. There we go. Now I'll kill the background color for this container frame. And now I'm just going to copy and paste this entire frame with the label and the switch inside it to create my second control. And this one is for the year. Now, the fact that I'm copying and pasting this code tells me that this code is reusable. So I might think about putting some part of this in its own component to make it easier to reuse without having to copy and paste. In fact, I think I should do that but I'm not going to just because I'm eager to finish this project, so I'll leave it as is for now. But that might be something you'd want to try on your own as a learning exercise. Now we're experiencing a bit of a bug here. We're not seeing the label for this second control. Similar to a bug that we fixed in our navigation bar that would cause the hamburger icon to disappear. And the fix for it is the same, which is to set the Z index of the settings panel to 0. Again, I'm not sure exactly what's causing that bug, so I'm not sure exactly why this fixes it, but for now we can put that in and we'll see our label. So that's looking pretty good, but I want to have it so the rest of the screen dims when this panel appears. To do that, I'm just going to add a dark colored frame to my app component, and I'll put that behind my settings component, but in front of everything else. I'll make it dark purple and I'll make it fill the entire screen. And then I'll set the opacity to 0.5, so 50%. There, that looks nice. So I think everything that we did in this video should have been review for you if you've watched all the videos up until this point. All we did here is build out a new component and then added it to our master app component. None of the switches work yet, and of course I don't want this settings panel to be stuck open all the time like this. So we'll fix those problems in the next few videos, which will also be the last few videos.